Hey, good morning guys. Tush coming at you. Sunday, August 28th, and we're just after 11 o'clock in the morning. We got a beautiful day here today. I guess the forecast must have changed because I thought I'd read that it was supposed to be thunder showers most of the day today. I was kind of wishing it was going to be that way because I need to be in the garage working on the car most of the day, and having a day like this makes me want to drive this. So it's easier when it's raining to justify being in the garage. Anyway, so what's going on with the TR3? Let's see. I did manage to get it out for a bit of a run yesterday. I did get the linkages all hooked back up on the Webers. I did want to take it for a bit of a run to see if I still had issues with the carbs, and of course I do. They didn't miraculously fix themselves. So we've got to work on the tuning of the Webers. Now, we're going to do that. First of all, we're going to do it fairly methodically, the way I normally sort of work on this car. So what we're going to do first is we're going to actually take the tops of the carbs off, and we're going to check the float levels in both carbs. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Now, I did run into another problem that I'll tell you about, and it's a little bit frustrating. So this problem sort of reared its head earlier in the week when I was trying to start the car one night. I was being a little finicky and wasn't wanting to turn over either on the ignition switch or on the back of the push button on the solenoid here. So I either got a bit of a dodgy solenoid or a dodgy starter. I haven't done any testing on it yet, but I've wanted to run the car to run the fuel out of the Webers. I have an inline fuel shut off on the line on this side, and I wanted to run the fuel out of the Webers, but the car will not start now. So we've got another issue to resolve, just what I need. Anyway, so we're going to do that. We're going to get to the bottom of that at some point, but like I said, I want to start playing with the carbs first of all. Just a quick update. I haven't been out in the garage much for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I've been busy at work, but I did have those parts on order, and they've been received. So just to let you know, I did get a new coil. I got a new cap, which I'm not very happy with the quality of that, to be honest with you. I did get a tune-up kit, so points, condenser, rotor. I did get some new plug wires. I've got a new lead there. I did get my heat shield for the SUs from ARE, Alexander Racing Enterprises. So there's the heat shield made of stainless steel. So that will go on the SUs if I decide to put them back on this car. And if you recall, I've got the 59, so they can go back on the 59 if need be. I do have my Weber Carb manual. This is the Haynes manual for Weber Carbs. It's not the greatest manual, but at least it's got some settings that I need as far as setting float levels. So I have the 42 DCOE 8's here, and it indicates a float level closed of 5 millimeter, an open position of 13.5 millimeters, and a stroke or travel of 8.5 millimeters. So we're going to use that manual to set the float heights, and hopefully that will help us a little bit. Yeah, the car is definitely running rich, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of that. I think I do have the carbs balanced properly. The throttle linkage I think is in good shape. I did try to do the mixture, and as far as I can tell, the mixture is set to where it needs to be. Like I said, the car is still running rich, and I'm actually getting a bit of a popping out of, I'm not sure out of which carb, but I can hear a little bit of a popping coming out of the carbs, and popping or backfiring out of the carbs while I'm driving. Now that could be timing related as well, but like I said, I think it's more fuel related. Now, doing some reading, it sounds like popping means lean, but I think the car is running rich based on, you know, the raw fuel smell and what I can see coming out of the tailpipe. So, not quite sure what to do there. But anyway, the first step for me, like I said, I'm going to go through this methodically, and the first step for me will be to check the float levels and just to verify they're okay. So that's what we're going to do today, verify float levels, and maybe we'll try to do a little bit of diagnostics on the starter solenoid and the starter. Like I said, I'm hoping it's the solenoid, which is about a $30 part, versus the starter, which is about a couple $100 part. So wish me luck. Talk to you in a bit. Alright guys, there's a quick shot of the Weber carbs that are topless. Don't get too excited. And we've just got the floats sitting over here. You can see we've got the brass floats in this one. I think the later ones come with a plastic float, and the later ones are sort of a rectangular float versus the round floats of the earlier ones. So anyway, we're going to go through the process and check the float height. So maybe I'll try to take some videos for you guys. I'm not a Weber expert, but we'll do our best. If I do make any errors, I'm sure that somebody will point them out to me. Okay guys, we're all set up here and ready to go, so I'll just walk you through what I've got here. So obviously I have the top of the carb and the floats just sitting here, and you also notice I've got a set of vernier calipers and I've got a drill bit here, and I'll go through what those are used for. So as I mentioned, according to my 42 DCOE Series 8 settings, the position of the closed float should be 5 millimeters. So now we come back to why I have the drill bit. So there is actually a measuring tool used on Weber carburetors to measure the float height. It's a thin board, let's say, with some slots cut in it, and the slots are cut in, so the board is the thickness that the float needs to be set. The slots are cut into it so that the solder areas on the brass floats don't interfere with the measurement. So there's actually two sort of wells cut in this flat piece of wood or plastic. I'm not sure what it is because I don't have it. So there's two little wells cut in to make sure that the raised section of the floats, where they've been soldered, don't interfere with the measurement. So the floats actually fall in those cutouts of the measuring tool. Anyway, I don't have the measuring tool, so I'm going to do the next best thing, and that's use a drill bit. So as I mentioned, the floats are supposed to be set at 5 millimeters. So taking into account the raised area of the solder on the floats, I've got a 4.75 millimeter drill bit that I'm going to use to measure the distance between the floats and the carb body. So hopefully that makes sense so far. If I hold this up, and I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this. Alright, so there is the valve. Okay, obviously there are the floats. Now this is the area where I need to stick the drill bit in to measure the float height. And I need to have the gasket on, which I do because that affects the measurement as well. So we're going to be sticking the drill bit in between the float and the top of the carburetor to measure the float height. If that needs to be adjusted, then I do the adjustment here on this little tab that's just touching the ball valve. I need to adjust that in or out. And if I had that carb tool that I was talking about, it has a little slot cut in the end in it, and you can sort of use the little slot to bend that tab up or down. I'm just going to use a little pair of pliers. If we need to adjust the travel, then we use this tab back here to adjust the travel, and that entailed me taking the pin out and making that adjustment as well. So we want to make sure that when we're doing the initial adjustment that the valve is not being pushed on. You know, you don't want it like that. You want it to be vertical so that the floats are just touching the valve. You definitely don't want it so the valves are off, or the valve is off the floats. So you want it just sort of vertical. So in order to make the adjustment to the float level, I've actually removed the float. So I've just sort of tapped out the brass pin, and we have the floats here. It's a good idea just to give them a shake to see if they might be full with fuel, if there happens to be a leak in the solder or there's a pinhole somewhere. So just wanted to verify that as well. You can't go so far as to actually weigh these on a scale. I'm not going to bother doing that. I just wanted to see if there was any fuel in them, so they seem to be fine. So anyway, we're going to go and we're going to adjust this pin, or this sort of lever on here. We're going to actually drop that down towards the top of the carburetor because the bowls were sitting too close into the top. So we're just going to bend that flange, we're going to refit it, and we're going to recheck. Alright guys, Okay, I won't be able to show you this measurement in the correct position with this top lid vertical, but that's basically how I'm measuring the distance between the top of the carburetor and the floats to get that measurement. So like I said, I've got the drill bit in there, so obviously this would be sitting up vertical with no nothing pushing on the needle valve. So I just wanted to give you a quick shot of how I'm measuring that. Anyway, I've got the floats adjusted so that drill bit's just fitting in there and just barely touching the solder points on the float, so it should be good as far as the float setting is concerned. For the closed position now I want to check the travel position, so that's the 13.5 millimeter. I think for that one I'm going to have to go grab a little ruler that I have to be able to measure that. Excuse me, to measure that. So we're going to do that and we'll come back. So the closest I'm going to be able to get, it looks like, to get a measurement, I've got a 13.7 millimeter socket here. Sorry for the lawnmower noise. It sounds like it's going to blow up. Anyway, so 13.7, and I'm looking for 13.5 for the travel measurement. So the travel measurement, I don't know if I mentioned this already, the travel measurement is basically this with the floats fully open. So I'm looking to get 13.5 millimeters between the top of the carb and the bottom of the float, and again I have to take into account that solder ring. So yeah, we're going to get it as close as we can, so we're going to do that measurement now. And again, to adjust that we need to bend this tab up there. So again, we're going to probably take the float off to do that. Alright guys, come back. Alright guys, so we've got the first one completed. So yeah, not much to show. It was out of adjustment, so that's a good thing. It's not like I'm fixing something that wasn't broken. So anyway, we'll move on to the second carb, and we'll do the same process. Alright guys, we'll come back. Okay, the second carb float assembly is now completed. So it was also pretty far out of whack, so that's a positive sign that the car will run better now that the floats are set correctly. So we're going to reinstall these on the car. I wish I could go further and start the car and see if it made any difference, but like I said, we have the other issue to attend to now. Anyway, we'll get these back installed on the car. Maybe we'll call it an end to this video, and we'll pick up probably trying to fix the starter solenoid issue. Alright guys, we'll talk to you in a bit. Alright guys, all back together and looking good. We'll go through our parts bin and find that backup solenoid that we have, and we'll get out here later on today. We'll upload this first. See you later.